Welcome to the January 2025 online scrapbook event with Venetia Ramsey from Scrapworx. We're going to be creating 5 double page layouts using our About a Girl collection. You will need the booklet. We'll be using some of the patterns out of there. You'll need the primary pack as well as the essential pack. Okay. And you will also need the grey board. I have that underneath here. So we're going to use some of the titles from our laser cut grey board. I'm going to quickly run through some of the stuff you could prep before we actually start the layouts. So from the primary pack, the back of the page, so the bonus page, you need to cut out all the little banners, the tickets or the labels, and the little girls. I would cut them out as a whole for now, and then as we need them we can cut them out individually. And you need to cut this out and cut that out. From the laser cut sheets, you can just press everything out. It would go quicker if you just have it all pushed out. You need to do both both sheets. You can press this out as well. Right, and then the page called Isn't She Lovely? You can fussy cut just one side. There are 2 in, so we're going to use the goodies from this side, but we're going to use the pattern from that side. So you need to do that. Don't do both. As well as Girls Are the Prettiest, you just cut out the one side. We'll be using the pattern of the other side. For story time, again, you can just fussy cut one of these. This one we're going to be working with the back of, and that's all the fussy cutting that you would need to do from the primary pack. From the essentials pack, you can fussy cut all of this, just cut everything out, cut out the tags, again fussy cut the little girls. With this Life is Better with Giggles, you need to cut it out as a whole. So I want to use this little strip, and I'm going to use that. You can cut all of that out. On this one, you can also cut this in half, keep this as a whole for now, just in case we want to use it differently. And then fussy cut out all the little girls. And then these I cut them all out from the page called The Details. I cut all of that out. And this one, Smiles and Giggles, there are lots of tags here. It's whole strips of awesome little tags. I also cut all of those out. So you will need to do that. And what I do is I cut mine up into, and I sort it out into the way I will be working with it. So you can see I've already got some of it all cut out. So here's all the tags, the big tags and the little tags go in here. All the little wording from the one page has gone in here with like the little tabs from the fussy cut. Here I've also got some of the words from the other sheet. I've got that in there with some of the labels and the embellishments from the other sheets. And again, I've put it in a way that I would work with it. So here's some of the girls. I've got all the girls in this one with the goodies that go with her. So you need to and like the little bear and that kind of thing that would go with that. Then the wording, these are like labels and tickets and banners and those kind of words that are over here. So the banners and stuff are with that. And then this should actually be this side. So these are just words, and I put the journal cards with it as well. And then I put the blank labels with this as well, because it would be nice to maybe use that and then pop the word on it to fit in like that kind of thing. So you need to put your embellishments together in the way on how you think you would use it. Then I have a black tray off to the side where I've put all the strips of patterns that I might be using. Right, so that's kind of what you will need, the prep work you will need from the pattern papers, from your pattern paper collection. I also think that we can get all the paint work of the grey board, we can get that out of the way before we, let me just put this out of the way. so that all the dirty work is done. We don't need to dirty our work surface each time in between the layouts. Alright, so for my titles, I'm going to be working with Black Soot Distress Paint. I'm going to be working with a little bit of Uncharted Mariner, some Lost Shadow. I even did, I think, a little bit of Iced Spruce. And then I also have Ground Espresso, I like Scorched Timber. And then some white acrylic paint. Okay. So because I know I'm going to be working, and then you will also need some clear embossing ink and the Walnut Stain Distress Embossing Glaze. And with that you will need a piece of photocopy paper that we can use just to pick up some of the glaze. Alright, I also have some water off to the side to clean my brushes. I have my paint brushes. This is a very old brush that I'm going to use for distressing, and a broader brush which will get my paint going on a little bit quicker. And then I have just a cloth or a nappy to wipe the brush off. Okay, so we're going to start, and that's what I want to say, because I'm working with mainly dark colors, I'm not going to worry about putting a white base on first, putting the gesso down. But if you were going to work with a lighter color, if you wanted to maybe work with something like Tattered Rose, and you want the color to stay true, then I would put some white gesso, or just a thin layer of white acrylic paint to prep the gray board. But I know I'm going dark, so that's fine. We're going to start with Little Lady. For that one, I'm just going to use some Scorched Timber. Put a little bit on my mat. I use this one a lot. You can see it's already running out. So we're just going to paint, give Little Lady 1 or 2 coats of paint like that. Okay, so you want to add your paint like that, and remember that paint will work as an adhesive. So if I leave my grey board in that wet paint that's coming off at the bottom there like that, it's going to stick. So you need to remember to lift and move. It'll also give you an idea when you move it out of the way where you haven't actually got any paint, where you've missed a spot. Okay, so that's going to go on like that. We're going to wait for that to dry, and I'm going to go into doing the next one. I'm going to leave that paint there in case I need it for something else. So I'm going to work with a black, and I want, before I mix that into a color that I want to use, I'm just going to take the brown off my, like this. I'm not wetting my brush, I'm keeping it dry. I'm going to pick up this black, and I know that I want the clips and twirls. We're going to do that black. I'm just going to add the black like that. Okay, I'm going to lift it and move it a bit. I'm just brushing on some paint here and there. Oh, I'm going to leave that to dry, and I'm leaving that to dry, but I know that I want to do this like a grayish color, and the Lost Shadow is just a little bit too light, and the black would be too dark, and I don't really want to make it too white. So what I'm going to do is just mix it. So remember, there is already some black on my brush. I'm going to pick that up and just add it like that. See what I get with what I pick up with the Lost Shadow and with what's already on my brush. And I know it's not looking like it's very neat at the moment, but I'm just wanting to get that first layer of color on. Okay, and for me this grey is just a little bit too light. I'd like a little bit darker, so I'm just going to finish getting as much of the base covered. And you can see it's quite splotchy. I'm going to pick up that black, and while everything's wet, just work that in. And it's going on not as dark as this one. There is a bit of that grey coming out. And again, I think that this now is a little bit too dark. But we'll keep working with it until we get to a colour that we like. Don't be scared to rub your brush to get some of that paint off. And also by rubbing it like that, the paint that's already at the bottom, you get it to mix a little bit better. So the two, you force the two to rub in to create another color. I am very hard on my brushes, but they are not for fine art. They are for mixed media. So the stuff that I use for the more delicate and my fine artwork, I use a more expensive brush set. And I definitely don't manhandle them like I do this one. So there you go, that's starting to look almost the color that I want. I'd still like it just a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take off the excess that's on my brush. I'm not wetting my brush, keeping it dry. I'm going to pick up this and just work that into each color like that. And that looks more or less like the gray that I want. Now I could have probably mixed my palette, I could have mixed the color that I wanted. But then it would have just been the one dull color. This way, I'm able to create a little bit of interest in the color that I have underneath. A little bit of dimension. Okay, I'm just going to move it a little bit. So you can see I need to work this color in a little bit more over here. And I can bring in some more of the black. And I really like the way the color mixes on the gray board. The effect that it creates. So there we go. If it feels like you are starting to build up too much paint on your brush, you can just take it off. There we go, I'm happy with the way that is going. So any lines I may have created, I'm just going to work out. And there we go, so not quite black, but not too light a grey. It is, I'll hold it up a little bit better, maybe we'll get it. A very nice grey. Let's work that little bit in like that, okay. So happy with that, the way that's turned out. I'm just going to take off what's on here. And now that that little lady has dried a little bit, whatever's left on here, I'm just going to go and add just to get it in a little bit darker so we can get that second layer of color. I'm just using what's left on the mat. I'm very happy with that. And then this left over, we can just go over the clips and tools. If you've missed a spot or two, we can use it. But I think I got everywhere quite evenly on the clips and tools. Right, so happy with the way that's turned out. So the next one we're going to do is beautiful. Our butterfly kisses we won't do now. We'll come back to doing that one. So again, just trying to get off as much paint as possible without wetting my brush. Okay, so for the next one, I would like to create, I want this to be a little bit blue. So I worked with Lost Shadow, very little, some Uncharted Mariner, and a little bit of iced spruce. Okay, my iced spruce has gone a bit funny, but that's okay. You can still use it like that. So we just work it in. You can add a little bit of water to this if you want to. The paint is still very much usable if it's made. In fact, sometimes when it's congealed like that, you actually get some really awesome effects with it. So I don't throw it away. I use it. So we're just going to paint that light layer with the weird paint at the bottom here. Like that. And then I'm this time going to mix some of the Uncharted Mariner in there, because I don't want it too blue. I want like a very soft kind of blue. There we go. There's the blue I want. So you can also mix. Like I said, I could have done that same mixing, but I kind of like the way that turned out. I'm just going to add this blue here. Maybe you have a blue in the acrylic that's already the color that you want it to be. So now that I've put it on to my letters, it still looks a little bit too blue. I still want it to be a bit even softer than that. Just going to move it. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit more of the Lost Shadow. Not cleaning off my brush, so the color that's on there will then, do you see that it changes that Lost Shadow to a blue? And that's, I think, more or less the color that I would like. It's a little bit lighter, and I'm just gently applying it, pulling it from the top of the letter down, so that I have a bit of this background. The dark background will also show through here and there, and then in the other direction and the other way. Okay, very happy with it. That color. I think that's about right. Okay, I'm going to clean off my brush. I don't think I'm going to need it again, so I'm quite happy to just give it a spray for now, and I'll leave it wet like that. Generally wrap it in a wet wipe, and then when I get to the tap I can clean it, but as long as it stays damp, the paint won't harden in there. Just don't know where my wet wipe is at the moment. Okay, so very happy with the direction that this is going. One of the things I like to do is to add a little bit of distressing to my letters, but before I do that, I'm quickly going to dry this, and then we'll be back, because I need them to be dry for the next step. I'll be back then to show you how to add a little bit of distressing to that. Okay, and I'll just clean up a little bit, so I'll see you in a bit. Right, so everything is dry. I've squished a little bit of white paint onto my mat. You can work with any acrylic paint if it's whatever you have on hand. I like this one, it's a little bit thicker. So you can pick up your paint and then tap some of it off. You want to work with a dry brush. Okay, and you're just going to pull the paint, hold your brush at a flat, and pull it across so that it catches the edges of the title on your grey board. Just going to work it like that. Lots of ho-hos again tonight. So once you've pulled it this way, you're going to pull down. And then do the same thing, and I'll turn it around. Pull the brush up. Like that. So you kind of get like a distressed shaded kind of look. We're going to do the same with the About a Girl. I'm going to use what's left on my brush. I might just reload in a bit, but I'm just going to pull this across to get that distressed look. So the brush is it's not holding up straight. The brush is laying flat, and the bit of paint that's on the ends of the brushes, we just pull that across like that. Just keep going, and then down and to the top. You really just want to pick up the edges and any distressed pattern that may be in the grey board. So you can see here and there I'm rubbing, and here and there just pulling the paint. So just adding a bit of extra shading here and there. You'll notice that I picked paint up here where we dabbed off and not in the bigger piece of that. Right, so this will help, especially in the titles that have a bit of a join. If you work in a circle where that's been welded together, you just add a little bit of paint, like I'm rubbing, just to put a gentle definition between, or rather the word is subtle, between where the join is and the other letter. Makes it a little bit easier to read, I think. Okay, so we're just going to play around with that. I'm going to go back here and add a little bit more. So I know that I will want to do the butterfly kisses a bit lighter, so I'm going to use the leftover white paint to create my base. Just making, I'm getting a good base color on here. And then that's left, I'm just going to do that same effect on the beautiful. I'm not going to do the clips and twirls. That's just going to stay solid like that. And this one I'm not doing too much. I'm just getting it on here and there because we're going to use some embossing glaze on that. So as the white dries, I can see where the grey board is showing through, and just going back to add a little bit of extra paint to those areas. You can see on the U, the B, right, so there we go. That is the acrylic paint part of this process done. So all the messy bits done and dusted for now, except we're going to add some extra stuff to that, but at a later stage. Right, so now I want to just add the embossing glaze. So I'm going to use some clear embossing ink. I'm going to put that a little bit on my mat like that. And take my brush, make sure I've got most of the white off, and just use this to create a layer of clear embossing ink. You can use the ink pad instead of the refill goodie, but I find this works quite quickly and easily and puts on a good thickish layer. And again, remember just to move it so that anything that gets caught in the grooves, you can then just work in like that. All right, so I think I've got everywhere. You can just hold it up, and if you can, I can see everywhere it's got a bit of a shine, so that's going to work. All right, we're going to add some embossing powder. So like I said, I'm working with the Distress Embossing Glaze. I like it because it is translucent, so that blue will start to show through. Okay, I'm going to lift that up and tap, tap, tap some of it off. And when I put it down, you're probably thinking, so why did you paint it blue? You'll see why in a bit. Okay, let's put this back inside here. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up my heat gun, and then I'm going to use this to melt the embossing glaze. So I'm going to hold the heat gun like this, it's going to melt. As it melts, it's going to liquefy. Once it liquefies, I'm going to use the heat gun to move that liquid around till it kind of gives a very distressed look. All right, so the heat gun makes a lot of noise. I'm just going to put on some music, and you can watch how it happens. But take note of how I work with the heat gun. Like I said, I'm going to work from this side to this side till it's all melted. Once it's melted, I'm actually going to use the heat to push that liquid where I want it to be. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Right, so you can see by melting the embossing glaze like that, I accidentally found out that if you overheat the glaze, it separates like that. It seems to just congeal here and there, and you can actually, like on the tea, push the plastic to the side to create a really, what I think is a very awesome distressed look. Just trying to get out of the shiny. Put it there. There we go. You can see how nicely that has then embossed. So you get like a distressed look without too much effort, I think, and it's fun to watch it melt and move it around. Okay, so that is basically the goodies you need for your layouts. That's your fussy cutting, your prep work done. You can do all the coloring of your letters beforehand. Okay, so I'm going to clean up and we're going to be back and start with layout number 1. I'll see you in a bit.